everybody, welcome to Gorey's Horror Stories, and it's Garbogust. We've got 8 days left, and I was thinking I'm going to do a reading from Trash Tales. I'm going to do it live, which I don't usually do. So the first thing I need to do is try to find something that's not too spicy, but this is an adults only stream. If you are not an adult, then you probably might want to not be listening, or maybe not. Get your parents' permission. Let's see what we got here. So I am part of a wonderfully trashy anthology called Trash Tales, edited by Alex Gardner, who also has a channel, and by Criminali, who also has a channel. And so I'm going to, now you're going to hear a lot of clicking because I've got this on my laptop. So let's see here. Now, first of all, I'm going to give you the little, the foreword. The stories in this anthology come from a range of authors from different countries. We had retained the original spelling as submitted by each author, and therefore some regional variation. Spelling is present. Content note: the anthology contains violence, sex, and sexual references, themes, general weirdness, and language that some readers might find objectionable. Alright, so what have we got here? Criminali presents Trash Tales, an anthology of trashy fiction. From Kilter and Rommel Punishment. See, there you go. I'm already screwing up the words. Kilter and Rommel Publishing in the UK. For all the wonderful writers and fabulous fans who appreciate the joys of trashy fiction. And who doesn't enjoy some trashy fiction? I got a bunch of stuff here. I have misplaced my water bottle. Oh, and I do kind of need that for obvious reasons. Aha, haha. Found it. Must stay hydrated if I'm going to be reading. Now, you know what happened? So I don't know if you've been following along, but I have the world's worst luck. Hi, Jordan. I have the world's worst luck with laptops. Okay, I have had 10 broken laptops so far. Either it's a ghost, because nobody seems to know what happened to them, or bad luck. Hi, Glenna. James. Uh-oh. So I bought yet another. I bought a laptop in October when I got my tax return, and not even 2 months later it was smashed. Just completely smashed. I found it on the floor, smashed, and nobody was anywhere near it. And I asked my nephew, I said, "Did you see what happened?" He said, "No." So I bought another one, and it was in its case on my bed, and I found it yesterday, and there's big gouges, like somebody took some device to it and just scratched the hell out of it. And at first I thought it was just the plastic covering, so I take off the plastic covering. Nope, screen's scratched. Hi, Bailey. A ghost did it. Yes, I actually did have a ghost at my old place, but I'm not in that place anymore. So we're not sure if the place where we're staying right now, not for very long, but the place where we're staying now has a ghost. But stuff does kind of topple when nothing's anywhere near it and there's no breeze or anything. So all right, let's see what we got for stories here. I would like to read a story. Key for contents: in the mood for a particular genre, use the icons to find the perfect story. So we have a skull for horror. Ooh. One ghost, nah. Handcuffs for crime. Little, what's that called? An atom for sci-fi. A cactus for western, or bizarro. Give me one of these icons if you want to hear anything in particular. Fancy a short hit of fun fiction, or have you got time to put your feet up and dive into something a little longer? The reading times referenced in the contents will give you an idea of how long it might take to read each story. And if nobody decides to give me an icon, I'm going to go with a horror story. Going once, going twice. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, let's start with Shelley and the Fishman by Mark Cowling. So we want, oops, on page 77. What have we got here? On 67. So this is one of the shorter stories in Trash Tales. Oh, hi, Jordan. Again. Shelley and the Fishman by Mark Cowling. Mark Cowling is a writer from Essex, UK. His work has been featured in BBC radio sketch shows and many places online, such as Daily Fiction. His short fiction was included in the anthology Campfire Macabre and was a winner of the 2020 Yahoo Store 14's competition. All right, what do we got? Day 1. It was Shelley's 33rd day of working from home, and she had a solid system in place. Her phone would play Bieber's Peaches, Don't Judge, at 9 a.m. sharp. This was the cue for Shelley to throw one arm out of bed and grope around for her scratch-to-shit iPhone. Okay, see you soon, Jordan. The trick was to reply to 3 or 4 work emails, and then she was clear to go back to sleep for an hour or so, take a leisurely shower, and grab some caffeine. As far as the dopes at K&R Artist Management were concerned, Shelley had her pointy little nose to the grindstone. While sipping a cinnamon roll frappuccino and considering whether to transition an elongated mid-morning break into an early lunch, Shelley spotted a dark shadow shift at the far side of her kidney bean pool. Good night, Jordan. Goddamn raccoons, thought Shelley. It was bad enough that they trawled through her trash and crapped on her sunbed. Now the raggedy little bastards were taking a dip in the pool. Shelley armed herself with a broom and slid open the patio door. She beat the broom against the floor a couple of times. "Hey!" she yelled, but decided against... Oh, wait a minute. I can't believe I just lost it. I did not mean to do that. Okay, there we go. Oh, come on. Okay, sorry about that. She beat the broom against the floor a couple of times. "Hey!" she yelled, but decided against any further outburst in case the actress she was trying to befriend next door heard and thought she was loco. The girl only had a part as a bespectacled coroner's assistant in some basic... Okay, what the hell is going on here? Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna... Having a little bit of laptop problems here, folks, sorry. Okay, you know what? I am really sorry about this. Up. Why do I only have 62 pages? Jeez. Oh, it's an EPUB file. That's what, oh no, I'm not doing anything in Adobe. You could just screw it off. Okay, that's not working. Yeah, see, I'm fully convinced that Adobe is some kind of, I don't know, virus or something. Okay, there we go. Let's try this again. While sipping a cinnamon roll frappuccino and considering whether to transition to an elongated mid-morning break into an early lunch, Shelley spotted a dark shadow shift at the far side of her kidney-shaped kidney bean pool. Goddamn raccoons, Shelley thought. It was bad enough that they trawled through her trash and crapped on her sunbed. Now the raggedy little bastards were taking a dip in the pool. Shelley armed herself with a broom and slid open a patio door. She beat the broom against the floor a couple of times. "Hey!" she yelled, but decided against any further outburst, in case the actress she was trying to befriend next door thought she was loco. The girl only had a part as a bespectacled coroner's assistant in some basic something. Come on. Yeah, this is what I'm looking at. Can't see it. Okay, you know what? I'm going to give up on this. Well, I tried, but I am going to have to come up with the $7 to buy the ebook because I don't have it right now. And I am having a serious problem with my PDF file because, and this is an actual PDF file, not the euphemism, because I can't seem to open it. Ugh. I don't know if it's just I have a kind of a laggy live stream kind of thing going on here. There's something else, or if it's just a problem with the file itself. Okay. Oh well. I tried. Let's see if there's something else I can read to you guys though, because I don't want to like go away empty-handed. So let's see if I can find a really good horror short story to read out loud. So I apologize. I don't even know if anybody's still watching, but now that's 141 pages. I don't want to read that. Alright, let's see if we can find some really good short story online. Because I might end up just going with a classic. Of course, stupid Google isn't even searching for me. Let's see what we got here. Alrighty. Yeah, let's go with something totally classic. Because fall is coming. You know, I saw my first tree, well, maybe not my first, but the first one that I kind of pointed out went, that's starting to change. So this time of year, things are transitioning a little. This is one of my favorites. The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am, but why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now, this is the point. You may fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing, but you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded. And with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh, so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed, so that no light shone out, and then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening, so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I did it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight. But I found the eye was always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph, To think that there I was opening the door little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly as if startled. Now, you may think that I drew back, but no, his room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close fastened through fear of robbers. So I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing on it steadily, steadily. I had my head in and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in the bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed, listening, just as I have done night after night, hearkening to his death watches in the wall. Presently, I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh no, it was the low stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise, when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He'd been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He'd been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor. Or it is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he's been trying to comfort himself with all these suppositions, but he had found all in vain. All in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he never saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a single dim ray like the thread of the spider shot out from the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones, but I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And now, have I not told you what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses? Now I say there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I know that sound too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, as the beating of a drum stimulates a soldier into courage. But even yet, I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker, and louder and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder. I say louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I've told you that I'm nervous. So I am. And now at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet, for some minutes longer, I refrained. I stood still. But the beating grew louder, louder. I thought the heart must burst, and now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length, it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot, whatever. I'd been too wary for that. The tub had caught it all. Ha! Ha! When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bells sounded the hour, they came a-knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. Hi, Lemon's Awesome Adventures and M.O. See my chest? What's wrong with my chest? The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things, but ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued, and it gained definitiveness until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased. What could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound. Much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose. Different noise. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh, God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I'd been sitting, and it grated upon the boards, but the noise arose all over and continually increased. It grew louder, louder, and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew, they were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think, but anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die, and now, again, hark, louder, 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 louder. Villains! I shrieked. Dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here, it is the beating of his hideous heart. By Edgar Allan Poe, January 1843. And there's an illustration in this version, which I found on the internet from the poemuseum.org. So here's the lantern. I don't know if you can see it. I hope you can see it. And then there's another illustration here, and it is him standing triumphant, but kind of afraid at the same time. Alrighty, I hope you enjoyed that reading. Is anybody still out there? So let's see here. So we had talked with Jordan, Glenna, James, Bailey, Jordan. Jordan had to leave. I've got Gertrude YTB. Hello, I didn't say hi to you earlier, I don't think. Noria, osteopathic practitioner. Nice. And Lemon's awesome adventures. And M. ... Oh, see my chest. Oh, my chest. All right. Thank you all for listening. I think I'm going to find one more story. Anybody wants to stick around, or if anybody can think of a story that they want to hear me read. It's probably better if we choose a shorter story. Sorry I couldn't read something from Trash Tales, but the file just wasn't opening for me. Having a quick look here. Oh, and thanks to the new people who subscribed, by the way. Nice to have you. I think my I've got a very slow got a pretty slow internet connection here, so this is why it's not finding anything. There we go. The last man is famously effective. Yeah, I know that story. That's a good one. Oh, a mother. Oh, these are very, very short stories. Let's see here. My favorite short, scary story is by Zoea Marland, Class 12. Who's in my bed? A father went to say goodnight to his 7-year-old son, very well knowing that if he didn't, his son would have trouble sleeping. It was a nightly routine between them. He entered the dimly lit room where his son waited under his blanket. With the first glance, the father could tell there was something unusual about his son tonight. He couldn't put his finger on it. He looked the same, but it had a grin that drew from ear to ear. You okay, buddy? The father asked. The son nodded, still with the grin, before saying, Daddy, check for monsters under my bed. The father chuckled a bit before getting on his knees to check, only to satisfy his son. There, under the bed, pale and afraid, was his son. His real son. He whispered, "Daddy, there's someone on my bed." The red wristband. A doctor was working at a hospital where the patients were tagged with colored bands. Green was alive, red was deceased. One night, the doctor was instructed to get a few supplies from the basement of the hospital, so he headed to the lift. The lift doors opened and there was a patient inside, minding her own business. Patients were allowed to roam around the hospital to stretch, especially those who stayed long. The rule was to be back in their rooms before 10. The doctor smiled at the patient before pressing the number for the basement. He found it unusual that the woman didn't have a button already pressed. He wondered if she was heading to the basement too. The lift finally reached the floor where the doors opened. In the distance, a man was limping towards the elevator. And in a panic, the doctor slammed the elevator button to close. It finally did, and the lift began to ascend back up, the doctor's heart pounding. "Why did you do that?" "He was trying to use the lift," the woman stated, annoyed. "Did you see his wrist?" the doctor asked. "It was red. He died last night. I would know because I did his surgery." The woman lifted her wrist. He saw red. She smiled. "Like this one?" A mother's call. A daughter was in her room upstairs doing her homework when suddenly she heard her mother call to come down for dinner. She jumped onto her feet and began making her way towards the stairs. But before she even took a step, hands grabbed her and pulled her into the laundry room beside the staircase. She panicked before realizing it was her mother, her real mother, eyes watery and bloodshot. "Don't go down there, honey. I heard it too." Alrighty. I don't think there's anybody else here, but I want to say thank you for everybody who's been here watching and listening to me blather. And I hope you have a great rest of your night. I hope you're reading lots of horror.